in-depth it can get.
You have to look for textures and you have to look for strange things that you really normally wouldn't. You walk on the street and that's it. You get to where you need to go. I'm rubbing New York.
Being in New York, surrounded by so many other people, and the city's so massive, buildings, bridges, it's not human scale. So being able to make something, no matter how small, it gives you a sense that you can affect your environment. Otherwise, it's this immovable, huge thing that you cannot participate in or change in any way.
I rub New York. I rub New York. Now you can too.
It really puts a human touch and a human emotion on all of the rough and gritty lines that are New York. It's not always a beautiful place to be, but it can be if you make it your own. I like the community outreach and just the fact that everyone can do it. It's kind of a simple process.
This is my artwork, and they have lots of texture in them, and they have lots of colors.
You are an artist. You become an artist.
The concept of rubbing comes out of my graphic design background. As a graphic designer, I've always been interested in texture, so I've always tried to find ways to include texture in my work. When I first received the assignment to design some graphic material for a street line of sweatshirts, I had no idea what that was going to be like. So I thought if I took a walk on the street it might help, and I went out to the street and got a feeling of it. It was dirtier, it was different, it was organic, it was busy and coarse. I thought, how do I put that into a piece of paper? And I thought, well, maybe I should put the piece of paper to that. So I put the piece of paper onto the street, the hubcaps, the buildings. After I did that graphic design, which was probably in 1970, I realized that there was this whole movement of street going on. But my own artwork was more about being in touch with surface interests and more about trying to connect to those surface interests. I have a more romantic, kinder, sweeter way of handling the images that I use. I know that the city is rough and tough, but for me there's always been this kind of sweet love affair with the city that comes out definitely on my work. Also, my intention is always to stroke and love the city and not to make it look ugly, because I care about the city a lot and I want that to be visible in my work. Madeline was the one who said, "Did you ever think of making this into a community arts project?" And I had no idea what she was talking about.
I came in, met with Carol in her studio, and we were talking about her work and her relationship with the city.
We just hit it off, and you know, she noticed that I had a project or had a show of my work, which was called I Rub New York.
And told me a bit about how she does it in paper, big crayons, and roams around looking for interesting texture. Her experience with the city and then also her deep affection for it lent itself to being a community arts project. Her artwork being the inspiration. It was rich enough to support a project to involve the public.
Do you want to rub New York? Yes! Yes! All right, everybody, get a piece of paper here and a crayon, and we're going to get you to rub New York.
She loves the city, and in that same hand, she loves the people that live here. She is a studio artist, but then she's also out there putting herself in situations that look a bit odd, spark people's curiosity, and she can talk to anybody on the street, has a good jive with all walks of life. And this whole idea of exploring the city through rubbing, I felt like I was with an expert. So sure, let's try it out with the community.
And she had no qualms about whether was it going to work, wasn't it going to work. She was just going to do it. She just said, let's do it, let's try it, and that's what we did.
Carol's studio is in Union Square, so it seemed appropriate to go out into Union Square with crayons and paper. It was a beautiful day, there was a lot of traffic, and we pretty much just approached anybody that we saw with paper, crayon, and our concept.
Oh, they do.
The first event I was a part of was in Union Square. A lot of people turned out, a lot of people really were into it. We got some amazing work from little kids to like the homeless guys that are there to the skateboarding, dreadlock wearing dudes.
Come on, let's get some people here.
To me, it's the equivalent of going up to someone and giving them a high five. It's that easy, you know, like high five, crayon, paper, rub.
That's a part of what's cool about Irubny, New York, is that it is a really spontaneous activity. The response from the community was very supportive. It was enough to keep the project going. And the range of people was what interested me. It wasn't just children and parents looking to have an activity for their children. We had a whole range of people.
And it was fun. Everybody was doing it. Everybody got on the street, got on the floor, they got on the ground, they got on the sidewalk, they were on the buildings. It was really exciting. And I think Madeline had a lot to. She's so open. I think that's what it is. She was so open to the rest of the universe, much more than I was, I think. And that, to me, made everything happen.
Take a crayon, take that orange one.
People always say that nobody notices things in New York, but that's not true. If they see a woman on the street with a large piece of paper rubbing the sidewalk, they're curious. They want to know what she's doing. But the real way I engage people is the way my mother taught me to engage people. You just open up the possibilities. My mother's house was always open. My mother always had enough food to feed the entire neighborhood. So I felt the same way. I mean, I invited people to have a crayon, try the project. And art is a universal language. So if I just stick my hands out with a paper and a crayon, I mean, what more do I have to say?
See, everybody's contributing a little bit to this rubbing. A little bit, we're just making a big, big rubbing here. Very nice.
Hi, my name is Carol Caputo, and I rub New York. And I want you to rub New York too.
Everyone says to me, I never thought of doing this in my neighborhood. Or when I'm walking down the street, they would ask me, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And I always say, I'm rubbing New York. And they would say, but why are you doing that? What are you going to do with all that? And I would say, well, I'm just getting in touch with my neighborhood. I'm getting in touch with your neighborhood. And I always offer them a crayon. I always offer them a paper.
Why are you doing this is a very typical question, but then also, sure, like immediately, yeah. People have their armor on the street and they're a bit defensive and they're skeptical of everything, but the transformation of people after they've accepted the paper and crayon and they've gone on their mission and they come back, they're so delighted, so happy.
Ta-da! It's really amazing that you can find these words in these little panels. It's great. Thank you very much.
Everyone has their own story as to how it affects them, but across the board, it has this transformative effect. And it's such a quick and easy way to just relate with the environment.
The idea of turning places a little bit on their head, it doesn't have to be anarchic. It's just maybe changing the context a little bit.
After you make a rubbing, you're just more aware of all the different surfaces around you as you're walking through the city instead of just seeing a concrete slab on the ground. You might think about what it's actually made of.
The most important thing to rubbing is to find a three-dimensional surface It could be bumps, it could be a railing, it could be just about anything. Take a piece of paper, put it onto a surface that looks interesting to you. You don't have to rub the whole surface, you could just rub a portion of it. I always recommend that you turn your paper around several times to repeat the image so something personal comes out of it. It's not just rubbing a stone to look like a stone or a railing to look like a shape. But the excitement, I think, comes from when you see the possibilities of what you can achieve by moving your paper, turning your paper, adding color to it, 6 crayons, 1 crayon color. All of those things add the dimension. I think people are very surprised at what comes out of that. It's not just about putting the paper down. It's about how you feel the texture underneath it and how your impression with your crayon, with your hand, all that pressure makes a big difference in how each of us rubs something.
There's always an arm's length to the objects and the things around us. To have the opportunity to actually touch surfaces and investigate a little bit more has a positive effect. For us, it's been easier to have it be an open-ended project and have it develop in this organic way because we really want to involve the community sincerely. And so if we have everything totally laid out, then we've closed the room of possibility as far as the feedback and the ideas that may come back to us.
I don't really have an idea of what I'm going to do with this, and I like that. But as the images came into the studio by mail or from our projects, I started to notice something happening that was totally and absolutely out of my control. I started to notice that there was a language emerging that was not part of any language that I had ever known. A language of the people saying something in a very specific moment and connecting to their city. And that to me was like a mind-blowing experience. So one day I just came into my studio and looked at these things and I said, oh my God, this is an urban language experience. So we allowed the community to speak to us. We allowed the community to participate. And now we're allowing the community to say, hey, this is what we are. And that's what the urban language experience is. Thank you.
You guys want to try it? I really appreciate Carol doing this, and I really appreciate being a part of it.
I can't draw.
Neither can I, but I can do this. You just put it on, you take the crayon, and you rub on the surface. It's just for art, just to get people to do art. It's definitely changed my perspective on the city, and it's brought it a lot closer to me. You just are a part of something just by making the rubbings.
I think now we can go down the street.
Carol's enthusiasm rubbed off on everyone else. She got this big group of students who at first they're kind of looking at her like, what is this lady doing? And then a few of them, they wanted crayons and start rubbing.
If you love New York, you'll rub New York. That's what I say.
And so after a couple of them did them, everyone wanted, oh me, I want to do it. So I thought it was cool, just getting people to make something.
Okay, thank you.
Art in general unites people, and that's why it's great. I mean, art is not for just artists who are trained for years in school, but it's for everyone really. And I think community art at heart is all about just participating and getting involved and creating something that you've even never expected yourself.
The minute someone does one rubbing, they are ready to do 6 rubbings because they want to experiment. Because intrinsically, everyone wants to feel creative. And this makes everyone feel creative, and it makes them feel in touch with the surface and in touch with their city or their location. We want to make sure that everyone is included in this experience.
One idea is to have every square inch of the city in a rubbing and see what it looks like, see what kind of messages we see, patterns.
We decided to invite every single neighborhood to participate and to invite either by councilmen or by churches, by community centers or schools to participate and add their words or impressions or contributions or artwork to the grander scheme of the project, which we'll call the Urban Language Experience. So using art, using this project, for me, the most important thing is connecting to the people in my city and having them connect to me and having them connect to each other, which I think just makes us a better city and makes us a community. So in my own little way, I'm just going to give back to my city on a one-on-one basis. That's fine with me.